Good morning and good afternoon to everyone joining us for our webinar number 15. I will just wait a couple of minutes to see if more people are joining before starting with the introduction of the webinar and explaining you a bit more about the dynamic. So I am seeing that more people are joining, so welcome and good morning or good afternoon to anyone. Please feel free, to write in the chat your name and where you are joining us from. So before I begin with the webinar, I will also share with you a bit of myself. So I am Aurélie Knecht. I am the project officer for the IURC program, which is the International Urban and Regional Cooperation Program funded by the European Union, and that seeks to promote the exchange of knowledge and best practices between European and Latin American cities and regions. I will carry out the moderation in English, but if you wish to listen to the webinar in Spanish or in Portuguese, you can switch to the interpretation channels at the bottom of your screen to choose your preferred language. So the main objective of this webinar is to open up a technical discussion on practical applications for the 15-minute city model to promote active mobility and increase urban sustainability and quality of life. We have today with us two international experts that will share their experiences on the adaptation of the 15-minute city model concept in Umea in Sweden and in Valencia in Spain. We will discuss different opportunities and challenges that they faced in the application of these models in the two cities. So to give you a bit of context about this webinar, so today we decided to gather together to delve deeper into an exciting concept that is revolutionizing the way we think about cities and urban living. So the idea of 15-minute cities has gained significant attention in recent years as a groundbreaking urban planning approach that aims to create sustainable, livable, and interconnected communities. In a world where urbanization is rapidly increasing, the concept of 15-minute city offers a compelling vision for cities that prioritize proximity, accessibility, and quality of life for their residents. By reimagining urban spaces as places where essential services are and also amenities and opportunities are within a short ride or walk from residences, we can transform cities into vibrant, inclusive, and environmentally friendly spaces. So in this regard, in this webinar, we will explore the concept of the 15-minute cities, its key principles and implications for urban planning, transportation, community development, and sustainability. We will also discuss case studies from around the world, highlighting successful implementations and the lessons we can learn from them. By shedding light on the relevance and potential of the 15-minute cities, we hope to inspire meaningful dialogue, spark innovative ideas, and empower participants to contribute to the creation of a more livable and resilient urban environment in their own cities. So as we will go together through this transformative journey to reimagine, I cannot read this word, reimagine the future of our cities, I kindly invite you to share your thoughts, questions, and ideas and comments in the Q&A section that we have at the bottom of your screen, so we can have a lively discussion and debate around the topic together. So now that we will begin with the event, I will briefly present you the agenda of the webinar. So first, we will open up the discussion with the case of Umea, Sweden, presented by Lucas Röhlinger. And then we will have the case of Valencia in Spain, presented by David Moncholi. And at the end of this panel, we will have a discussion and a Q&A session. So again, if you have a doubt or a question, please write it at the bottom and we will answer that at the end of the presentations, okay? For the ones that just joined the webinar, I remind you also that we have live interpretation in English, Spanish, and Portuguese, and you can choose your preferred language channel at the bottom of your screen. So without further ado, I'm gonna present our first panelist, Lucas Röhlinger. So Lucas studied a master's degree on urban planning at Umea University and a Bachelor of Geography at the University of Marburg with a specialization in urbanism. He is a project manager for the project The Low Carbon Place 2.0 for the municipality of Umea, dealing with sustainable lifestyles, including mobility and electrification. Before, he was also a project coordinator for the sub-project service hubs within the national initiative Sharing City Sweden, which dealt with the sharing economy and how it can contribute to sustainable cities. The service hubs sub-project focused on shared mobility, hub solutions, possible business models, and behavioral change. He was also a GIS analyst for parking needs and worked on different parking strategies. So now, Lucas, the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the nice introduction. I'm going to share the screen now. Can you see the presentation now? Yes.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, so thank you very much for the invitation here to this webinar. My name is Lucas Röhlinger, and I'm working in Umeå in Sweden at the municipality as a strategic development officer. And I'm here today to talk a bit about the mobility transition in Umeå, how we work with that, and yeah, also about the concept of the 50-minute city and more like how we interpret it in Umeå. So without further ado, let's get into the presentation. So here you see a picture of Umeå. Where is Umeå? It's not a very big city in European context, but you see here on the map where it is located. And we have about 130,000 inhabitants. We have a rather young population with 38 years in average. So this is because of the huge amount of students that we have, but also we are a city with lots of children being born here, and a lot of families. We have 2 universities and about 40,000 students. And we have a rather balanced economy, so it's not like we're depending on one branch of industry. We are, yeah, we have a broad stand there also. Yes, and we have a kind of an international we are an international city because we have so many people from all kinds of different places coming to Umeå and working here or studying or just living here. So we have a mission or a goal, a vision for Umeå, which is to become 200,000 inhabitants 2050. And this is correlating with the prognosis that we have for the growth. So Umeå is a very fast-growing city. We have doubled our population since 1960, and we have decided politically that this further growth in Umeå should be reached with maintained social, environmental, economic, and cultural sustainability. So these are like the ground principles that we work after. And these dimensions are very important to not see separately. They have to be understood in unison. And this is the only way we think we can become or stay an attractive, livable, and climate neutral city in the future. So we're talking about mobility today, and I always like to show this graph from a research paper, which indicates that there is a very clear connection between the density and the efficiency of the transport system. A denser city provides a better basis for more frequent public transport, which increases the attractiveness. And for Umeå, a compact city is what we are striving after, with short travel distances, and where cyclists predominantly can have the best options to get around. And then we want to uh, also allow for good public transport and electric buses. So less car traffic means more space for inhabitants and greenery, and of course better quality of air, less noise pollution, and everything. And also, yeah, additionally, we are using district heating network. So if we have a dense city, we can use that in a better way and more efficiently. And this is also contributing to the reducing the climate impact. And on the map here, you see where there are no South American cities that I can see, but you see like the Asian cities are the best on this graph, and the North American cities are the worst. Yeah. So how does this look in Sweden or in Umeå? We, like, already before Paris came out with this 50-minute idea, we had something called 5-kilometer city, and this is kind of the version of the Umeå's version of the 15-minute city is the 5-kilometer city, and this is part of our comprehensive plan. And you see we have kind of two city centers. One is the actual city center, like historical. The other one is a center, or is around the university and a big hospital, and this is one of the biggest working places also, or places of employment. So we identify these two places as being like city centers and important, and around these we have these 5-kilometer circles. And within this area, we want primarily the future development to happen, and we don't want to sprawl out even further outside of these circles. So you see also three dotted areas where we are basically planning to build whole new city districts, and these districts are within these 5-kilometer areas. Yes. I mentioned the comprehensive plan. So you see here the same logo with the 5-kilometer city is part of the 10 strategies that we have for sustainable growth. And the other parts, I will also go into the other parts a bit. So of course we have one that says everyone may take part. So this is about inclusion. We have also a strategy which is about the growth along public transport corridors. So we have these main public transport corridors where we have a lot of buses going regularly, and there, close to these lines, we want also additional density to happen. And then we are in the process of converting roads to streets. So that means basically taking away space for driving cars and giving this space to greenery, to cycling roads or cycling lanes, and pedestrian areas. I get into that a bit more, and we try also to see more cities. So this is about connecting different parts of the city so that it feels like one continuous city landscape, and has good connections between these different districts. So we have we do travel habit surveys, of course, and this one, the numbers here from 2014, but we have newer ones that are not so much different from last year. So about half of the trips within the urban area of Umeå are still made by car. For some cities, this is a really good number, but we have to get down this number. We have to improve further. And buses are just 7%, so we need to be better there. But we have a lot of people biking, and this is we think this is a very good thing, even though we have quite dark and long and cold winters. So we have a goal to have 65% of sustainable travel in 2025. So there's some percentage increase to be made. This is a road in Umeå, and it's probably not so much new for you, but we don't have the land to widen our roads. You see the same amount of people on the bridge. On the one picture, they are all sitting in their own car, then they are cycling, and then they are in the bus. So this is basically telling you why we need to get away from the car. Even if we would change all the cars to electric vehicles, it's not gonna change that we need, if we are a growing city, which we are, we need to get away from car-based traffic to a bigger extent, at least. And I told a bit about the conversion. So this is I'm going to talk a bit more about that. So in Umeå, you had on the map, you see these two big lines in red, and these were like the main corridors for traffic for the longest time in Umeå. And you had, of course, a very much traffic there, because it's the biggest road also that goes further up north in Sweden. And many years ago, there was a plan made to have a ring road to get some of the traffic off these central lines that cross the inner city. And this is now the last part. The dotted line is to be finished soon. So then the ring road will be complete. And then we will start to convert these red lines into streets, from roads to streets. And here you also see two pictures, the upper part of how these traffic places or these roads look today. And then you see in the left corner a vision picture of how these streets will look like in the future. So it's not only cycling and walking, but also we will then build a priority line for buses in the middle. And we will, of course, then use this transition also to build housing and maybe even some offices or shops. Another part or another example is the Tomtebostrand is a new development with 3,000 apartments. And this is basically a whole new city district, and there we are working very tightly together with the companies that gonna build there. And when it comes to mobility here, we will establish several different hubs with different functions. And some of them we are calling service hubs, other we're calling plus hubs. So it's basically, it will always be some kind of a parking house with additional services added. And then we will have one plus hub in the middle where we don't have parking, but we will have or minimal parking, and we will have a lot of other services, including like a community center and cafe and places to maybe rent a location for something, I don't know, for the people who live there, if they want to have a room to rent or something, a co-working space, could be anything like that. So here you see also again, so we need to have like attractive public transport with frequent departures, designing the streets and neighborhoods to promote sustainable travel, and make it one big key is there is actually to make it safe, and that people feel safe when they are, for example, cycling. This is very important. And then good bicycle parking, education measures. And within these hubs, so we will have parking, we will have a bike pool, car pool, delivery boxes, because some travels might not be can be avoided in the first place. Then we will have other like waste management there, other services that people need, and yeah, and yeah, so we will see how this comes out in the end, but that's our plan. And besides this, we are also working then with different innovative projects and measures to work with sustainability. So, for example, the municipality has a bike pool for our cargo bikes, which is called U-Bike, where people can rent a U-Bike, like a cargo bike, and can, for example, make a big shopping tour, or some people use it to drive their children to the school in the morning. You also see the picture with the two people cycling in the winter. So it's very important to have good snow plowing priorities for the cycling streets. So there's no, the main cycling lanes or streets in Umeå have priority over the car lanes. So they are the first one that get cleaned off the snow. So this is very important in Umeå. And then you see pictures of the electric buses, and we are planning to electrify the whole fleet to 2026, if possible. And this, of course, comes with a lot of challenges. The electric buses have their problems in the winter, especially. You all know what happens when you take your iPhone out in the winter when it's 20 minus. But we have worked around these problems, and we are very happy how the buses work today. Yeah, then I'm coming closer to the end. So behavior, we see behavior as a really important point, important aspect. We're making travel habits surveys, and we are also looking at the difference between women and men, how they travel, because there are some interesting differences. For example, we know that men or women travel 42% sustainable, while men travel only 46. No, sorry. 56% of women travel sustainable, and 42% of men. So there's the difference. Women take more often the bus, and men take more often the car. And it also, of course, this has to do with where they work, how they work, what times they work, what kind of different things they do during the day, different tasks they have. But it's very important to know these differences, because then we can also make services that actually fit to the persons that use these services. Yes. And we have, for example, also worked with We had a project a few years back where we allowed 10 families for 3 months to live without the car. So they got all kinds of different mobility opportunities like bus cards, and they got a carpool membership and cargo bikes and electric bikes. And then they had to work around and see how they can make their day work, their daily life work without the car. And there were some really interesting insights there to gain. So to break it down, what we think is the key in Umeå is the density. That's why it's in the middle, because the density allows us to have good public transport. Because we don't have to serve a huge area, we can limit the area when we have a dense city. We also, when we have density, we can also have good bike infrastructure. It's like the same thing. And then also, when you have density, you can restrict the parking, have a restrictive parking policy, which is enormously important to make gains in sustainable mobility. You cannot do it without talking and doing something about parking. And around that, you have like other aspects like norms, culture, and behavior, and they are they are changing over time, and you have to work with these as well. So to sum it up, it's important to have a holistic understanding of sustainability, and we in Umeå think that especially the social sustainability is also very important to get to this behavioral change, and to also take the people with you, and that it not just feels like, okay, the city is deciding something and nobody wants it, or this is totally not taking into account how lives are lived today or how daily work is done. And we have, as an organization, trained ourselves to see this behavioral change and to work with it, but it's obviously not easy. And it is also connected to power, identity, and norms. And that's why we work with things like gender equality as well. And highlighting and working with this is just as important as new technologies, we think. And yes, so this basically our message, to think about the people and not focus too much on technology and solutions, because in the end we don't need more solutions. We need just we need people to have options when they travel daily, and good options that make their life easier and fun, to use other modes of transport instead of sitting in a car. So that's all from my side. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Luca. I think everybody was very inspired by the experience of Umea. That is quite wonderful. We had the opportunity to have some of your colleagues also present different webinars, and I think this one was a good complementary presentation that delved a bit deeper into some technical, practical solution for sustainable mobility with the 15 city minute model, or rather the 5-kilometer model that you adopted many years ago, right? So I think we're gonna have plenty of time to discuss in more detail some very interesting questions that we all have in mind about how you achieved such an impressive model, and about the challenges that you are facing and that you mentioned. Because I think that it's really also important to discuss about what you just said in your conclusion about the social aspect of sustainability that is very, very important, and that often we forget to take into account into decision making and planning, because we're too focused on technical solutions and data that we forget about the human parts of it, right? So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our next panelist before we're going to open up the discussion. So our next panelist is David Moncholi. He is a civil engineer and transport planner with 20 years of experience as a consultant in the areas of mobility planning and public transport systems, especially in rail, as a team leader and or as a technical advisor. He has advised numerous transport authorities and public administrations in the development of solutions and proposals tailored to meet their mobility needs and challenges. He is an expert in transport modeling and has outstanding experience in leading and managing large-scale projects for more than 18 years. So David, thank you so much for being here with us today. Now the floor is all yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. Let me share my screen. Okay, I hope you can see the presentation. Okay, so I'm going to talk today about how we planned for active and sustainable mobility in Valencia, in Spain. This is the city where I come from, where I live. And I must say that I have been lucky, professionally talking, because I have been able to plan mobility in the city where I live. And I have been able to witness the changes of the city in the recent years. So I'm really happy to share these examples with you. Apart from the importance, of walking and cycling as the preferred backbone of a mobility system of our cities, I also want to highlight in this session the importance of the urbanism and urban design in order to achieve better mobility patterns. But also, and this is the example that I wanted to bring with Valencia, it's about realizing how important the verb will is against the verb can. So it is not the question if we can or not, it's the question if we want or not, if we have the will to change things. So this is important. And just some few remarks. For me, I'm for consultants and transport planners, the planning for active mobility, or I see it as a unique chance to propose a city model in which mobility takes place in a safe environment and in efficient, intelligent way. It's a way to recover urban space for the people, and bring back the people to the streets where they belong. It's also deciding or help others decide. In our case, as consultants, I like to see myself as advising someone who needs to take the decision. Politicians, I'm helping them to decide what is the model city we want. Do we want a city with trees, people walking, enjoying life, or full of cars? Do we want, this is an example of Dubai. I was able to plan active mobility in Dubai some years ago, and this is major road in Dubai, way bigger than the one in Umea. Or we want this kind of environment, urban environment. And we as planners, we can decide what is the city model that we want. This is another example of Dubai. You see here one hotel on the right, one metro station on the left. It's only 250 meters distance. You cannot reach the metro station walking. You cannot. There is no path. There is no cycleway, nothing. You have to take a taxi to take the metro here. But this is also Dubai. And this is what we did some years ago. We planned for bicycle, and we planned for, parking spaces for bicycle near metro stations and some walking areas. And when you plan for that, people use it. And the city changes dramatically. Sustainable mobility, the problem is when it becomes a trend. This is one advertising I saw once in the airport in Brussels. And they were mixing sustainability, mobility, and chemistry. I don't know why. I was so shocked. I come from a country in which we are experts in having sustainable airports, like this one. I don't remember. I think this is the Castellón. Yeah, this is the airport in Castellón. Nearly no flights. But we also have sustainable high-speed train stations. And we have sustainable roads and motorways, because nowadays everything is or must be sustainable. And the thing gets worse because once we were sustainable, then we became smart. And now everything needs to be smart or intelligent transport, intelligent mobility, big data, everything. you know, and then you can be smart and sustainable and mobility, everything all together if we want. But guys, believe me, what I feel that is smart and sustainable is the following. I was seeing the data in Umea. Nowadays, in the city of Valencia, in the latest mobility survey, 68% of all trips are made on sustainable modes. If we refer for origin destinations inside the city, the number rises up to 78.9%. And it's a city of almost 800,000 inhabitants. So it's quite a big city. More than 0.5% of the trips are done by walking in the city of Valencia. So this is where I live. The city of Valencia is the third biggest city in Spain. As I said, nearly 800,000 inhabitants, but it's the center of a metropolitan area of about nearly 2 million inhabitants. We don't have such tough winters as Umea. We enjoy favorable Mediterranean street design, weather, compact, dense, multiplicity of activities, short distances. The city is only 5.5 kilometers from north, let's say north-south, and east-west is only 7 kilometers, and it's very compact and very dense. And this is helping our model share definitely. Well, some other pictures of the city, train station. Of course, we also spend a lot of money on Calatravas architecture in the City of Science. So, I mean, as always, you can have things to choose. Some key data. The city, as I said, is the center of the metropolitan area. We have like 3 different rings. So the city of Valencia, the continuous urban area, so some municipalities which are really attached to the city, the first ring and the second ring. The thing is that in the last years, the population has been sprawling to the metropolitan area, leaving the city center and going towards the outskirts because it's cheaper. Housing is cheaper there, but it has caused an increase in the lengths of the distance of the trips, and that is going against, you know, these favorable initial conditions that we have for mobility. Another interesting point of the city of Valencia is that we live in a completely different place where we work. This is the areas with the most dense areas where population live. So the more red color, more people living. And this is where we work and study. It's a complete different. And especially everything happens in the city center. It's a super commuter city. Everything happens in the center. So we have a lot of commuting relationships, and that also creates some problems. We have about 5 million trips, daily trips per day. That makes 2.6 trips per person day. That's not very high, and that's typical on the southern part of Europe. From all of these trips in the metropolitan area, nearly 2.2 million are made in the city, and the average trip duration is only 23 minutes. You can cross the city in less than 25 minutes. So it's a really compact and dense city. And as I was telling you, because of this, everything happening in the center, we have a huge amount of commuters, nearly 850,000 daily commuting trips entering the city. I always say that whenever you are in the city of Valencia, 1 car out of 2, so 50% of the cars that you see are coming from outside the city. And that is a huge pressure inside the city. Nevertheless, we have for the total city of Valencia, considering all trips, internal and external, as I said, quite a good modal share. We are having 42% of trips in total, as I said, including internal and external. So if we include the internal trips, the modal split is fantastic. We already have 5%, nearly 5% of people going on bicycle. That has grown in the last years, only 21% taking car. The situation is completely different if we see the relationship between the city and the metropolitan area, where the vast majority of the trips are done by car. So this is something that we have to change. Also, we have analyzed mobility depending on age. And as you can see, green is walking. I always picture walking green. You know, the older you get, the more walking trips you have, et cetera, et cetera. So we have quite analyzed a lot. As I said, we have a quite good modal split in the city. You can see, because we have done several surveys in the 2012, we had the effects of the financial crisis, in which mobility went down and then went up again. So it's really working very, very well, as you can see. And if you see the trip length distribution, so the percentage of total trips that are done between different distance, you can see that 28% of the trips are below 1.5 kilometers. 39% of all trips are between 1.5 kilometers and 5 kilometers. So we have a huge amount of trips that can be easily made by walking or cycling, the vast majority, as I said. And if you go into the range of 5 kilometers to 10 kilometers in the metropolitan area, 18%, we also have a good amount of trips that can be easily made by public transport, okay? So this is one of the major elements that we identify. When we did a sustainable urban mobility plan in 2013, these challenges were identified. You know, that we walk a lot and that we have a problem with the metropolitan mobility, you know, mobility within the city and the metropolitan area. And that's why we decided that we have two major aspects to act. On one side, we must preserve the healthy mobility pattern of the city. So it's a jewel that we have, that we walk a lot and we have a density, and we have to preserve that. On the other side, we need to work on, you know, make a better public transportation system for the long distances in the metropolitan area. These were the two major ideas. And we had a whole strategy in which pedestrians were first, then bicycles, then public transport. If we had some more ideas, we dedicated something on a secondary strategy for private vehicle, but it was not, you know, the target of the SUMP. And then we had another horizontal strategies. Regarding a pedestrian, we wanted to enhance pedestrian tips. That's why we created what we call a network of pedestrian itineraries, in which it is not to make those streets pedestrian, fully pedestrian, but it's a network in which walking can be made easily with no obstacles, with wide sidewalks, with, you know, greenery, with trees, etc. You can see one of the proposals here. So we have some landscape on the top, and this is what we were proposing for these prioritized pedestrian links that go to the city center. Also, we propose in the city center, remember that everything happens in the city center, so there is a lot of pressure of trips going to the city center. We propose a one-way traffic scheme that allows cars who live inside the area, they can enter and leave the area, but you cannot cross the city center anymore with a car. So this is one of the things that we did. And we also created quite a new, conversion of central areas of the city to be pedestrian or pedestrian friendly. And we also created the idea of the micro centralities at each neighborhood, which is basically some areas which are free of cars, with more sidewalks, more space, some banks to rest, etc., so that each neighborhood can have like a little meeting point, in a more sustainable or safer, cleaner environment. For the bicycles, we propose the expansion, huge expansion on the bicycle network. And also we propose the traffic calming, so what we call Zona 30, so Zone 30, and the speed reduction in several neighborhoods of the city. And the end of the story is the implementation. We did the SUMP in 2013. It was approved in December, but it was put on a shelf, like many other projects. Nevertheless, in 2015, there was a change in the municipal government, and the new municipal government who had criticized and opposed the SUMP when we were doing it, were now in charge of the implementation. And they did it, they implemented. The plan has been put into force in the majority of its proposals, because it was, I must say, solid, well-grounded. It was a technical strategic document, and they have implemented it. This is how the town hall square, this is that building that you see is the town hall. So this is the very center of the city of Valencia. This is how it looked like before, some years ago when we did the SUMP. So it was full of lanes, full of cars, some areas for pedestrians. This is how it looks like now. So the vast majority of the square, only some bus lanes are left on the left side of the street. The rest has been converted fully pedestrian, and you see it's full of life, full of people walking everywhere. This is the market square. This is how it looked like before. In the market, we have the central market in the city, and we have one World Heritage monument, which is La Lonja, the Silk Stock Exchange, as we say it in English. This is how it looked like 2 years ago. And this is how it looked like today. And there was an exercise done by a bank, a major bank in Spain, and they collected the number of transactions with credit cards in that area. And they witnessed that the transactions were 20% higher than the rest of the surrounding area, which hadn't been pedestrianized. So it really has an effect even in the economy. This is the Reina Square. You see the cathedral on the bottom of the image. It was full of traffic, buses, you know, everything was a kind of a mixture. It was really complicated to walk and enjoy. And last year it was inaugurated, the new square, so it's fully pedestrianized, full of life, etc. And regarding the network, the Anel Ciclista, so we expanded the network. We proposed, this is what has been done in the recent years. And we also proposed in the city center what we call Anel Ciclista, so the cycling ring road. It was a way to connect all the bicycle lanes that really reached the center, but were not interconnected among them. So we connected them. And this is the major commercial street of Valencia. We had 4 lanes, before 3 lanes for cars and 1 lane for buses. Nowadays, we have 2 lanes for buses, 1 lane for cars, and 1 bicycle lane, the Anel Ciclista. Some other pictures in front of the train station and the bull ring. And this is another section between the train station and the bull ring. Another parts of the city in which we reduced capacity for private vehicle and dedicated bus lanes on the left, and then bicycles on the right. And as you can see, the intervention, it's not really expensive. It's some painting on the pavement and some, you know, sites elements on the right. You put some greenery and that's it. So it's really easy. The city of Valencia has a lot of traffic counting devices, not only for cars, but also for bicycles. I think that we are one of the few cities that we count really a lot of, we have really a lot of places to count bicycles. And this is how it looked like before we built the Anel Ciclista. And this is how it looks like today. I must say that that commercial city we saw before, Colón Street, had 18,000 cars per day before the intervention. Nowadays, it has only 5,000 cars. So it's more than 3 times less cars. And we have nearly 7,000 vehicles per day. Bicycles per day. So we have more people going on bicycle than by car in that particular street. In fact, in the city of Valencia, nowadays we have more people cycling than taking the metro inside of the city. And we also did, we went, you know, against the stream. So we had, you know, on traffic, if you're a traffic engineer, we like to plan what we call the greenway, in which the cars are, you know, moving, and they really have the traffic lights are green, green, green. So you can really move, you know, on a constant speed. We broke that. We broke that. We didn't want to have green waves in the city. Car travel time was worse after this intervention. It was on the newspaper, you know, traffic is worse, you know, delays, and, you know, 19 minutes is, you know, traffic congestion is terrible. But we had in 2014, 16 deaths on traffic accidents in the city. And in 2018, it was only 9. So nearly half of deaths just by reducing the speed, just by breaking the greenway. So I'm just finalizing and just final remarks. From my point of view, active mobility planning must remain aside politics. And this was a very good example. It was done by one government, municipal government. They planned it, they did the SUMP, they didn't implement. The others, you know, just the opposite, who were against it, but they when they were in power, they implemented it. So it was not really, I mean, it must be a side politics. Our proposal must be based in rigorous technical analysis. We need to use tools to assess and justify them, surveys, etc. We must provide to the decision maker for all the relevant keys to make the right decision. It must be technical. Of course, the politicians, they need to take it. They need to buy your ideas, because without it, we are dead. And we were dead in Valencia for some years after we finished SUMP. There must be dialogue, discussion, public acceptance of the plan. Otherwise, the implementation is going to be hard, if not impossible. Believe me, this transformation of the city hasn't been made easily. It has caused a lot of, oppositions in some part, the shop owners, some parts of the population, the drivers have been opposed. But once they see the benefits and once they see, how the city is looking today, things are reduced. This opposition is reduced. Give urbanism a chance, because most problems are solved through proper street design. You don't really need, metro, billions of euros in, big metro networks. Better some small interventions. And we must be brave. I mean, we have to dare. We believe in our ideas, and we really must brave to implement them. And the results are there. So I'm just finishing my presentation, just to, some examples of what we did in the city of Valencia. Of course, we had some, initial advantages because of the density of the city, and the city is very compact, and the weather, the city is flat, so it really favors walking and cycling. But we really acted in order to enhance and preserve this model share that we have. So I thank you for your attention. Gracias per la vostra atención. This is how we say it in Valencian language. And I am really open to any other questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, David. It was a wonderful complementary presentation to the first we had. I think now we have a very good picture of what we can do with this model and with sustainable mobility put into practice, with the bold, as you said, daring planners, consultants, and different experts being engaged for this difficult change, right? So I still invite you, the participants, to write questions in the chat or in the Q&A section if you have some. But in the meanwhile, I do have quite a lot of questions and comments, because it was very inspiring to hear the contrast, the similarities between the two presentations. First, congratulations on Valencia. We can really see the change in the picture that you showed us. I lived for a couple of months there many years ago, and it did change a lot. It's very wonderful. Now I have to come back and sit by myself. Very, very inspiring. And regarding these changes, I wanted to ask you, and also I think, Lucas, you might have something to say about that. How did you deal with the opposition of the people? Because as you just said, transformations can bring a lot of opposition, complaints of the car drivers, of the shop owners. How did you deal with that to convince them that the change was worth it, to build acceptance and to work with in an inclusive way with the population to make this big transformation work?
Well, in the case of Valencia, I must say that how can I explain it? Okay, there was of course consultations with all the different stakeholders. There were a lot of meetings, etc. But at some point, and this is what I wanted to highlight before when I was doing my presentation, at one point, if you really want to please everyone, then you will not reach really to anything consistent or really shocking or really changing. If you listen to the shop owners, I've been planning mobility throughout the world, in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, Europe. No matter where you come from, all shop owners will tell you, do not take any parking space in front of my shop, because it's the same behavior. Once you remove parking space, and once they see that they have more customers, then they want more pedestrian streets. Okay, so it's business as usual. So at some point in Valencia, what the municipality did was the following: we really believe in these proposals, we acknowledge your opposition, but we are going to do it. It was at the beginning not very expensive proposals. I mean, it was a kind of a mixture of tactic urbanism, and then because the town hall, for example, was done, temporarily pedestrian, and then they are going to make the final urbanization. So it was kind of a try and see. And then you see that, it takes 2 to 3 years to witness that people are enjoying the new space, the reduction of traffic. It was very funny. Some months ago, there was this picture on the newspapers of one guy who was against the bike lanes, and he was riding a bike with a flag against the bike lanes, but he was on a bike. That was so, and we were so happy to see, okay, you can be against the bike lanes, but you are on a bike, so perfect. Okay, you can demonstrate as long as you. So it was really, it has been painful, so it's not easy to do. That's why I was saying that you really have to believe in it, and you have to be brave, because you are going to have a lot of opposition, rainstorms, noise, etc. But then you have to, be strong, remain 1, 2, 3 years, and then, the citizens really change their mind like that, because citizens, people, we are not stupid. And once you see the benefits and you see them, then you want them. So it's just like that.
Yeah, you're right. That's totally the answer I wanted to hear, because we all are a bit afraid of this kind of opposition, and sometimes also because of politics. As you said, very important to do it anyways, and to separate a bit this kind of problematics and be brave in implementing them. Maybe Lucas, you want to say something about how it worked in Umea to increase the sustainable mobility and to promote different modes of active mobility?
Yes, I can. It was a wonderful presentation, by the way, from David. So maybe I add to what he said. I think also the tactical urbanism approach can be really helpful. It's not something that we do here very much, but I've seen the results in other cities. So basically testing solutions in a smaller scale, and that we are doing, but it's in our case it's mostly coming from us and not from the public, and then testing, and then really showing also the benefits, in one street, and then the next year you can close another street for cars, and we are in a way we're doing that. We are extending our pedestrian area in the city center. So last year there was like 2 streets that were closed, and then converted to a pedestrian area. And then the people see the benefits. They see the upgrade the street gets, and what it means to their business and their properties. So that's one thing. And then in Umeå, I think we were lucky to have like a slow and steady process for many years, driving this development. That said, it might be more difficult in the future when we have to make bigger changes faster. And I talked about the conversion of the main streets in the city center. That will be difficult, but at one point it will just be done, and then the work is on the way, and people will complain, of course, and even if it's done, people will complain. But then that's exactly what we need. I mean, if nobody's complaining, then we did something wrong. If all the people who are coming to the city center with car, if they don't complain, then we did it wrong. So in parts, it's a good way to have some to hear some opposition. Definitely, I think. If you're not hearing it, you should be worried.
You're totally right, Luca. Thank you very much for complimenting that aspect of the topic. I want to continue with the question that we have in our audience from Francesca. So if you want, Francesca, I'm gonna open up the mic for you so you can maybe ask the question directly. If you can just open your mic and maybe ask a question.
Sorry. No, for the city, there hasn't been any change in the design standards for the new developments. We are doing the standards are actually pretty sustainable by themselves. You know, the width of the sidewalks, the number of lanes, the width of the lanes, etc. So there is no really need to change that. We have been working because I said that the SUMP was done for the city of Valencia. We are now working on the Metropolitan Transport Master Plan, and we are working on some redefinition of the standards of the number of parking spaces per dwelling, because now there is a but this is not belonging to the city level. It belongs to the regional level, at least the metropolitan level. So nowadays there is a minimum number of parking spaces per dwelling, and we want to change that into not a minimum but a maximum, you know, just the other way around. So we don't want more than a number of parking spaces per dwelling, and this is what we are doing. And regarding the second question, what happens in Milan, you have to take into account that, you know, this major pedestrian and enhancement of walkability has been done in the city center. In the city center, we don't have that many inhabitants, and those inhabitants, they have their parking spaces, their right to access, etc. But we are doing that for all of the commuters that are going to the city center every day, which it's a huge amount. In the neighborhoods where people live, we are addressing other parking strategies. I focus my presentation on active mobility and cycle in the city center, but the SUMP contain other ideas on parking policies in the neighborhoods where people live, because the situation there is completely different. You cannot take out these parking spaces as easily in the let's say sleepy neighborhoods. Okay, so neighborhoods where people normally live. So it's another idea. So there's been opposition, of course, of car drivers, but there are some parking spaces in the city center, parking places. But at the end, people just learn how to move in a new way. So you will either walk or take the metro or cycle. You will change your mobility pattern.
Thank you, David. You answer all the questions all at once. Is perfect. I didn't actually have time to read them, but it was I think you understood that it was about how to implement parking policies and the opposition of losing parking spots in the center on street to replace them for more active mobility, right? And Edgardo's question about different design or zoning standards. So we also have another question in the Q&A from Miriam that asks, how do you manage the reduction of car parking space for residential areas? So about what you said, it was more difficult because of the problem. I don't know if you also have the same problem in Umea, but managing this kind of problem. I think it depends also if you talk about on-street parking space or as you said, the regulation to have minimum or maximum in space, in building parking space. I don't know who wants to. Yeah,
I can say a bit about that. So in Umeå, what we are trying to do and what we achieving in the more dense areas, but is more challenging in the outer skirts of the city, is to have a collective parking houses or parking spots or parking houses, instead of that every building has its own parking spaces or parking garage, underground parking. So, and what this does is it makes it less convenient for people, because if you have underground parking and you take the elevator straight up to your living room, that's I mean, that's much too comfortable. But if you, for example, have to walk 200 meters or more to your car where it's parked, then it's that's one thing. And of course, you have to make sure that you have this still parking for disabled people, and you still have the opportunity to park your car to if you bought some heavy stuff that you don't want to carry for 200 meters. So that's one thing, and it's setting a priority for bikes, because the bike parking is will be directly in front of the car, in front of the house or the dwelling. And then also, in a perfect situation, the bus stop would be closer to where you live than your car where it's parked, and that there's not really a way for you to park your car directly in front of your door. We have very limited amount of road on-street parking, and where we have it, we have something called like a date parking regulation or something. So depending on if it's an even or uneven day in the calendar, you are not allowed to stay overnight on one or the other side of the road. We do this primarily to be able to get the snow out of the way, because if there were cars on both sides every evening, that would be hard. But yeah, it's just these small things that make it a bit harder for people to own their car. But this is not enough to just do that, because we're not being paid to just make people's lives harder. We also have to then to have some other options, to give the people some other options to travel, and that can be, for example, a carpool that is close by, better public transport, of course, better solutions for biking, that you, for example, can drive with your bike directly into an underground parking or something where your bike is safe. So there are 1 million options, basically. But you have to work with these two sides. On the one hand, make it harder for people to take the car everywhere, while not making it totally impossible. And on the other hand, really put some money into alternatives.
Thank you, Lucas. Maybe if you have a quick comment, David, before we
yes,
have
as I said before, I mean, in residential areas, reduction of car parking space is not really the topic. What we proposed in Valencia, and they are started to implement in the city center, residents can access with cars. They have a kind of a special permit. In the, let's say, closer areas to the city center, we have implemented what we call orange zone. And orange zone means that if you're a resident, you can park there. But if you're not a resident, you have to pay quite a high fee. And in the outskirts, the outer part of the cities, exactly like in Umea, we are trying to, on one side, enlarge sidewalks, reduce some parking spaces, and bring those spaces to areas to some common parking spaces, common areas, so that you still have parking spaces. They are a little bit more away from your home, but having underground parking, for instance, so that really helps model share, but no reduction, no gross, net reduction of parking spaces in pure residential areas.
Thank you, David. It was a nice complimentary comments. Unfortunately, we're almost at the end of our webinar, but I wanted to take one last question because we didn't talk that much about these points. It's a very interesting question and comment from our colleague Alfredo from Milan, that was talking about how, in your experience, a 15-minute city means only better mobility, about what we talked about, better infrastructure, transport, bike lanes, pedestrian mobility, or also having closer services and infrastructure. I think you both mentioned that in your presentation about how it's very important to also bring work closer to places of residences and bring more complementary services together to build a mixed-use development, right? So maybe if you want to have a final comment on these kind of strategies and how they also benefits the model, to maybe have a concluding remark for the webinar.
If you allow me, just finally, of course, 15-minute city, it's not only better mobility, it's better conditions of life. I showed you before a picture of the mobility modal share by age, and we live in, at least in Valencia, in Europe, we live in a society which is getting older, and for those people getting older, the 15-minute city means that you can still do all of your activities on your own, that you can have independence, that you don't really rely on others to help you, because everything is at hand. So at the end, it's quality of life. It's not only mobility, it's quality of life.
Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely the core of it, and what we do, like I said, we don't really follow the 50-minute model, but we have like the same idea, and what that means is also that you have, like, for example, primary schools in every district, and you have elderly care in the vicinity, and you have like sports places to be outside to discover nature. You have places to buy your groceries and other stuff. Maybe you have kind of a community hub where you can share different things and resources and services, or where you can maybe have a working place in a community, or in a working hub. So there are all kinds of possibilities, and just to disperse it over the city so that people have access to it and don't have to travel so far for different things that they do on a daily basis.
Thank you so much, Lucas. I think it was a nice remarks also to remind that before concluding the webinar. So as we are about to end this session, I wanted to remind you the aim of this event, that was to discuss practical applications of the 15-minute city concepts to promote active mobility and increase urban sustainability and quality of life. So I think that with these two very good presentations, we actually reached our goal of building a very nice conversation about these topics. So in this regard, I would like to thank our panelists for their very, very great input and contribution on creating more sustainable, inclusive and lively cities. Before concluding, I also wanted to highlight some nice lessons that we learned in this webinar, so we don't forget about this very important topic. So first of all, I think that it's very nice to remind the social dimension of the 15-minute city and mobility planning, that is not only about infrastructure, about big, expensive interventions. As David said, you can only paint some streets, put some trees, do a quite tactical urbanism pilot project that can be replicated, as said Lucas. And these can actually have a concrete impact on the quality of life of people, even if there is some challenges regarding acceptation, complaints. If there are no complaints, you are doing the wrong work, as we also learned. So it's okay. It's about implementing these great ideas, prioritizing the people over the cars. Even if they're electric, there are still cars, they take so much space. It's very important to remind that today, where the electric car boom is very something, as David said, also the smart sustainability branding for everything can disguise other strategies that are not so beneficial to the people, that are actually the final goal of all these strategies, along with the climates that also benefit healthier and better lifestyles in denser and more lively and happy cities. So I hope I tried to summarize all these great ideas. I think there are so much more to cover. We also have so many more challenges to discuss about. So anyways, you can follow us on social media, get in touch with us. If you have any questions, we will share the presentations with you at the end. So don't worry, you won't lose all this precious information. So it was a very great pleasure for me to moderate this webinar about a topic that I very, very much like, and to have you all with us. I hope that you learned a lot today, and I wish you a happy Wednesday. But before you leave the webinar, you will have a short survey popping up on your screen to give us feedback that is very important to us. So please take just 1 minute to answer that. And then you're free to go with your Wednesday. So thank you again, and we hope to see you again very soon for our next webinars. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.